man, it's your host, King Dennis. We got my brother Adonis right next to me. And listen, man, today, this guy needs no introduction.
No introduction.
Alright, but he still will introduce himself for you guys if you haven't met him before. You know, he owns Crown Studio, just dropped his book on Amazon, available on all platforms. And I would like for him to introduce himself so the viewers know who we're working with today.
Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah,
it's a pleasure being here. So The Inner Light is a book about mastering love and letting go of fear.
Hey.
All right, because there are a lot of what keep us away from moving forward is our fear.
Right.
And for me, one thing that I focus on mostly is how to not give in to my fear of standing in the way of things that I truly want.
Right.
Because that's exactly the same thing that prevents me from going forward. So of course, I'm an author, I'm a coach, and I am the owner of Crown Dance Studio.
So like with this book being made, do you feel like it strengthened your love actually just creating this book and like just, I guess, limited your fear?
Actually, this book was really designed for me and for my family.
Okay.
All right, because growing up in a family that didn't have anything to begin with, and that had a lot of chaos around it, I didn't understand. You know, as a child growing up, I was born in the Civil War, so little did you know, coming up in the Civil War, I had nothing. You know, already everything around me was dark.
Right.
And as soon as I became into the age where I could see things and understand things, the first thing I was introduced to was a conflict within my own family. And I have never met my biological father until age 6. And during this time, I was with my grandmother, and there was an interaction between my grandmother and my father that really set things up for me that I didn't understand, because I have been with my grandmother for 6 years. She's been taking care of me. And I met my father for the first time, and then there's this clash between the two people that I absolutely adore and love. You know, you can imagine being a child for the first time. You meet your father, and as a boy, you know, I was very excited. I was happy. It was fun, and I met other relatives of mine, and people I've never heard of even to begin with. And then a week or two later, my grandmother and I are about to leave, and then I witnessed this conflict between my dad and my grandmother, which actually led to me staying with my father. You know, it wasn't a decision of my grandmother. She didn't want to have this happen. She didn't really plan on this being a case. We were going away from a civil war, trying to reconnect with my mother and my other brothers and sisters. And as we got through the village to where my father is, this conflict erupts. And it was all due to, you know, my grandmother taught me a very important lesson. And this was at age 6. She says to me, the worst lies you can ever tell is the one you tell yourself. So in essence, she said, honesty is not for other people. It is the character of who you are, you know, and a reflection that leaves behind. So for me, that was a lesson. So as we were leaving halfway out of the village, and not just a little bit of the book, I'm telling you, we were halfway out. My grandmother didn't tell my father we were leaving. I didn't tell my father we were leaving, and I didn't know why my grandmother did not. But then halfway through, and I said to my grandmother, I would like to say goodbye to my father, because I just met him. I was happy. I was excited. Why are we leaving? I'm not saying goodbye. Well, instead of saying goodbye to my father, I was saying goodbye to my grandmother. And after that, I never really got to see her again. And from that point on, just became something of witnessing different life experiences that I grew to, let's say, become comfortable with and accept. Because why it wasn't a choice that I made for myself, it was a decision made for me at a young age. I maintained within myself that circumstance in the society where I was, the environment that offered nothing but darkness, it's not where I wanted to be. So the book is called The Inner Light, because although there was everything around me and everyone around me that says there is nothing better than this, for me internally, I always knew that it was better. And I was always seeking out better.